Today, we're gearing up to dive into one of the most gripping courtroom dramas ever made, the 1992 masterpiece, A Few Good Men. This film is a powerhouse of intense performances, razor-sharp dialogue, and a plot that keeps you on the edge of your seat. Set against the backdrop of a high-stakes military trial, A Few Good Men challenges us with moral complexities and unforgettable lines that echo through cinema history. This film becomes synonymous with courtroom drama excellence, was directed by Rob Reiner and released in 1992. Crafted with a budget of approximately $40 million, the movie is renowned for its star-studded cast, including Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. Based on a play written by Aaron Sorkin, who also wrote the screenplay, marking one of his early forays into screenwriting that would later lead to a celebrated career in Hollywood. The film is particularly memorable for its intense courtroom scenes, especially the iconic exchange between Cruise and Nicholson, which has etched itself into popular culture. A Few Good Men was not only a box office success, grossing over $240 million worldwide, but also a critical darling, earning several Academy Award nominations. Its impact on the legal drama genre and its enduring popularity are testaments to its quality and the powerful performances of its cast. To explore more movie recaps from the works of Rob Reiner, click on the link in the top right corner. Film begins at the U.S. Naval Base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Two Marines, Private First Class Loudon Downey and Lance Corporal Harold Dawson, get arrested for attacking and causing the death of a fellow Marine, PFC William Santiago. Initially, it's thought they assaulted Santiago because he reported Dawson to the Naval Investigative Service or firing his gun illegally at a guard on the Cuban side of the base's fence. But Naval investigator and lawyer Lieutenant Commander JoAnne Galloway suspects something more. She believes Dawson and Downey, otherwise outstanding Marines, carried out a Code Red, an unofficial form of discipline involving covering an error to improve performance. Santiago, who struggled in comparison, planned to report Dawson to the authorities, hoping to be transferred to a new camp. Dawson and Downey are sent to a military prison in Washington, D.C. for trial. Galloway wants to defend them, but the case goes to Lieutenant Junior Grade Daniel Kaffee, a Navy lawyer inexperienced in trials, but known for arranging plea bargains. Kaffee has a fear of living up to his late father's legacy, a renowned attorney. Through Downey's aunt, Galloway joins the defense team, along with Kaffee's legal researcher friend, Lieutenant Sam Weinberg. In a flashback, we witness a meeting involving Jessep, Markinson, and Kendrick on the morning before Santiago's death. Jessep was upset that Santiago bypassed the chain of command to report Dawson to the NIS for shooting at the Cuban guard. He was also dissatisfied with Santiago's performance in demanding base exercises. Markinson argued for Santiago's immediate transfer due to safety concerns, fearing retaliation from other Marines. However, Jessep strongly opposed this, fearing it would set a bad image and weaken their defenses. He insisted that officers must ensure proper training for all personnel, and Santiago should stay for training. Back in the present, Kaffee meets with the defendants and discovers they are dedicated Marines stationed in a sensitive area near an enemy country. Dawson values honor, duty, and the chain of command, prioritizing the unit, corps, God, and country. On the other hand, Downey is a simple-minded young man, wholly devoted to being a Marine and loyal to Dawson. Kaffee, along with Weinberg and Galloway, visits Guantanamo Bay to investigate the crime scene. They meet with Colonel Nathan R. Jessep, the base commander, and other officers. Kendrick, Santiago's commanding officer, displays hatred and claims that Santiago's disrespect for the Marine Code led to his death. Kaffee realizes Kendrick won't cooperate with the case. During lunch, Jessep reveals that he is against Code Red, but feels the need to use it for discipline. He claims that he arranged Santiago's transfer on his request for safety, but Santiago died before leaving. Kaffee requests Santiago's transfer order document informally, but Jessep narcissistically demands to be properly asked respectfully under military code. Back in D.C., they discover Markinson has gone missing, complicating matters as he's been a witness to everything. Hours before Santiago's death, Kendrick gathered the platoon and ordered them not to touch Santiago. However, Dawson and Downey now admit that Kendrick later met them in their room and instructed a code red on Santiago. Their intention was not to kill him, but to shave his head as a lesson. Tragically, Santiago died because a rag was used to gag him. They called for a medical officer, but it was too late. The prosecution is led by Marine Captain Jack Ross, who is a friend of Kaffee's. Ross has been given considerable freedom to close the case due to Jessep's upcoming promotion to the National Security Council. Kaffee, known for plea bargains, may have been chosen to keep the case from reaching court. Ross offers a deal to the accused to accept their mistake and spend only 6 months in prison, but Dawson rejects it, valuing honor over cowardice. He's determined to prove he followed orders, even if it means a life sentence. Dawson sees Kaffee as a coward for offering the deal of giving up and refuses to salute him in respect. Initially confused by Dawson's stubbornness to choose spending a lifetime in jail rather than spending only 6 months, Kaffee considers quitting the case but changes his mind. At the grand jury hearing, he pleads not guilty for his clients. Kaffee, Galloway, and Weinberg put in long hours preparing their defense, involving weeks of research, discussions, planning, and rehearsing witness testimonies, especially for the slow-witted Downey. Yet, on the trial's eve, Kaffee believes they're destined to lose. The court-martial begins, revealing that code reds are common at Guantanamo to enforce discipline. Santiago wasn't meeting standards, but only faced a code red on the night of his death. Barnes, another Marine, admits wanting to do one with Santiago but claims Dawson wouldn't allow it. When Ross asks Barnes to show where exactly is the term code red written, or what is the exact definition of this procedure, Kaffee argues that not every Marine procedure is in the manual, and thus code red was a thing practiced specifically in their camp. Dr. Stone's report suggests Santiago died from a poisoned rag. Kaffee gets Stone to admit lactic acidosis can result from exercise, but Stone won't admit falsifying reports. Galloway tries to object again and again, negating the doctor's claim, but her objection fails, leading to a drawback in their case. This defeat disappoints Weinberg. As the trial unfolds, Kaffee proves himself as a skilled litigator. He impresses even Galloway with his tough and clever cross-examination skills. However, he's realistic that his clients may not escape punishment since they've admitted to assaulting Santiago. Kaffee's main goal is to convince the jury that they didn't intend to kill Santiago and were following orders from Lieutenant Kendrick. Lieutenant Colonel Markinson, who had gone missing, reappears in Kaffee's car during the trial. He reveals that Jessep lied about Santiago's transfer for safety, and instead Santiago was meant to stay for training. Markinson offers to help Kaffee win the case. Kaffee plans to use him as a witness, but Ross warns that Markinson might not handle the stress well and cautions against staining Kendrick's reputation, who is superior. He reminds him that going against a senior can jeopardize his entire career. Kaffee hesitates, but continues to stand by his investigation. During Kendrick's cross-examination, Kaffee questions him about denying Dawson a promotion for helping a fellow Marine who had been pun IS head for theft. Kendrick denies ordering a code red on Santiago, standing by his duty and religious beliefs, despite Kaffee's efforts to challenge his record. Markinson reveals that Santiago could have left the base the evening of his death, contradicting Jessep's claim of a 6 a.m. departure. Kaffee can't find evidence of the earlier flight in the Guantanamo airfield logbook. Markinson suspects Jessep of covering up the truth and tampering with the logbook at Andrews Air Force Base. An infuriated Kaffee decides to put Markinson on the stand to uncover the truth. In court, New evidence raises doubts about Kendrick ordering Dawson and Downey to execute the Code Red, something the defense had assumed. It turns out that Downey was on guard duty and not in the barracks when Kendrick allegedly gave the order to Dawson. So, it's just Dawson's words that they were given orders and not directly Kendrick. This could mean that Dawson lied about Kendrick, ordering them to act Code Red in Santiago. Markinson, rather than tarnishing his reputation and the Marine Corps publicly, writes a letter to Santiago's parents, taking the blame for their son's loss. He wears his full-dress uniform and takes his own life with his sidearm. With Markinson's crucial testimony gone, Kaffee believes the case is doomed and turns to alcohol. Galloway urges him to call Jessep to court and somehow make him confess to ordering the Code Red. Although there's no evidence, falsely accusing a superior could ruin Kaffee's career. In his drunk state, Kaffee shouts at Galloway for suggesting a stupid idea. But later, with Weinberg, he remembers his father's approach to justice. Weinberg encourages him to decide if he or Lionel Kaffee is handling the case, and Kaffee chooses to put Jessep on the stand. Kaffee apologizes to Galloway and convinces her to rejoin them for strategizing. He believes they must rebuild the case against Jessep. Kaffee suggests that Jessep, who is stubborn and egotistical, might actually want to confess ordering the Code Red. While searching for his lucky baseball bat, Kaffee is inspired by his neatly hung uniforms and leaves quietly. He starts researching phone records and sends Weinberg to Andrews Air Force Base. Jessep is called to court. As Kaffee begins his cross-examination, Weinberg arrives with 2 airmen from Andrews Air Force Base, catching Jessep's attention and making him nervous. Kaffee initially gets Jessep to admit arranging Santiago's transfer for safety, with the earliest flight the morning after his death. To challenge the authenticity of the transfer order, Kaffee questions Jessep about his travel habits. Jessep confesses to packing various clothes and making phone calls to meet friends and relatives in Washington for one day. Kaffee points out that Santiago didn't do any of these things. His clothes were still in his closet, and he hadn't made airport pickup arrangements, despite months of seeking a transfer and finally leaving forever. However, Jessep cleverly counters him by stating that he can't speculate about Santiago's habits and mocks Kaffee for basing his client's defense on a phone bill. This leaves Kaffee momentarily speechless, and Jessep seems about to leave with a smug triumph. But Kaffee, despite being junior in rank, insists that Jessep remain seated. The judge also scolds Jessep for subtly criticizing the courtroom procedure and disobeying the court's moral code. Kaffee then questions whether Jessep ordered Kendrick to instruct the men not to harm Santiago. Jessep confirms the order and asserts that Santiago was to be transferred if there was a threat. Kaffee asks if Kendrick or the men might have questioned this order and acted on their own. Jessep angrily denies this, stating that his frontline troops must always follow orders without question. At this point, Kaffee points out that if Jessep's orders are always followed, there was no need to transfer Santiago in the first place. Momentarily stunned, Jessep attempts to find alternative reasons for the transfer, but Kaffee presses for the truth, leading to Jessep's explosive declaration, "You can't handle the truth," because Colonel Jessep defends the country in a dangerous area. He doesn't understand why Kaffee, who's never been on the front lines, questions his methods. Jessep believes Kaffee should either thank him for protecting the country or join the front lines. Amid objections, warnings, and threats, Kaffee aggressively presses Jessep to admit he ordered the Code Red. In anger, Jessep confesses. Prompted by Kaffee and the judge, Prosecutor Ross arrests Jessep. Jessep is furious, accusing Kaffee of weakening the nation. Kaffee is satisfied that Jessep will go to jail for Santiago's death. Later, Kaffee tells Ross that the airmen were a bluff to pressure Jessep and had no clue about any flights. Ross congratulates Kaffee on his win and leaves to arrest Kendrick for lying to the court. Dawson and Downey are found not guilty of murder, but dishonorably discharged, while Downey questions why they have been discharged for simply obeying their senior's orders. Dawson realizes they didn't defend the weak like Santiago when they could have gone against the Code Red orders by their own moral code. As they leave, Kaffee tells Dawson that honor isn't tied to a patch, and they salute each other. Kaffee reflects on the courtroom one last time before leaving.